Hey, this is Crane, and this is a rep review for Precision. It's a PVZ on Polypoid. There's two main issues that I want to point out with the game. One is kind of consistently true throughout the game, and the other one is just true at 8 minutes, so I'll start with that one. Um, you're not pressuring your opponent in any way at this point. Usually with GateFE, you'll be doing some kind of zealot pressure at 8 minutes, but we cut zealots for quite a long time, and so we don't actually have the appropriate zealot numbers to do a push right now. If we had been making zealots constantly, and if our gas had been appropriately timed so that our +1 was finished right now, then we could do massive damage right now, right? Like we could have 8 zealots or maybe even more at the third right now, and this would be devastating, right? So that's something I just wanted to start with. You either need to do some kind of zealot pressure or constantly make Corsairs to bully overlords or get a super fast archives to sneak in a DT. But in this game we do none of those, and I think that's a problem where we are allowing our opponent to drone up as much as they want. But I think the bigger issue with this game is that we don't seem to be reacting to what we're scouting. We always default to a greedy opponent and just assume that our opponent is going to be making a lot of drones, and that's not always the case. So I think you're underestimating the power of scouting and not making decisions based on what you see. So for example, here we pylon block the natural, which I think is fine if that's what you want to do. It actually ends up being quite good this game because he doesn't send this drone to the third at the appropriate time. But we immediately leave with our probe. We don't actually look to see if there's extra Zerglings being made or if there's a 230 gas and expect speed to be on the way. We have no clue what's going on. So I think that's a big issue where we need to be scouting our opponent with this probe. But if we're not, this zealot should be sitting at home. There's no reason for this guy to be out here, because if they made 8 Zerglings instead of 6, then we would easily lose the game, like immediately. Like, yes, this zealot is going to get into the Zerg's main and do good drone damage, but if only 2 more Zerglings have been made, or worse, he could easily have 12 on the way with speed soon, um, we would immediately lose the game. So I think we got very, very lucky that only 6 Zerglings were made here. Um, and we should have been scouting to see if it was 6, and then we could have done exactly what we did, or if it was 8 or 12 or whatever else, and could have reacted accordingly. But we were greedy, and it paid off for us, which is not a good thing, to be honest. We should be greedy because we know we can get away with it. So another point where we're assuming our opponent is greedy is with the 4 zealot push out. Right when this cannon finishes, we send 4 zealots, which is a fantastic timing. I mean, just sending the 4 or 5 zealots that you have at this time is great. But again, we're assuming our opponent is being greedy. If our opponent went for a Ling all-in right now, or even if they just went for like 8 to 12 Zerglings with speed, we would probably be dead. A Ling all-in would certainly kill us. So we need to have sent a probe out before this to just look around and see if we can spot a pack of Zerglings, or even get into their natural and watch if they're making Zerglings or drones, for example. I think you're underestimating the power of scouting, because if we have no information, or if we see a lot of Lings, these zealots need to stay home. So this is a risk. Throughout the next portion, it's a little bit uneventful until about 10 minutes. So we're doing a push at 10 minutes with 6 zealots and 3 Corsairs. This push could have happened at 8 minutes, potentially with even more units, like I said earlier. So I think that the push is just in error, but it does give us good scouting information. So we see about a control group of hydras here, and then about a control group of hydras here, and we see that the drone count is really low. So our reaction from that should be, let's be defensive. Let's throw up 2 more cannons, and let's sit behind storm and cannons, and get our robo, get our range, and then push out with our 12-minute timing. But we just, again, even though we see this, we don't actually react to it. We end up being, again, greedy. And this time, our opponent is not being greedy. They're being very aggressive. They're behind 20 workers. So we cannot take this third. We just can't. Um, and we had the information to not take the third. So I think consistently you are not making changes to your play based on what you see. So I think that would, I mean, you're executing well. I mean, you're making probes well. Your micro is good. You're executing your build relatively well, but your decision making is just not there. So I think that should be your focus, where you need to be watching your replays and thinking about what am I scouting? What do I need to scout in order to not die in these various scenarios, and then implement those that decision tree into your play. Where right now it seems from this one game that you just kind of assume that your opponent is being greedy, and that's not always the case. So